Hello, everyone, and welcome to Good to Great Schools Australia's preview of our English Writing Informational History program for Foundation to Year 6. This is a little bit different this afternoon if you've joined us for previous webinars, as we're actually previewing a unit that hasn't yet been released. And I'm hoping that through the presentations this afternoon, you'll get an insight into our development process for putting these units together. It's great to be able to share it with you. I can see we've got some repeat attendees who've joined us for the Persuasive Writing Using Civics webinar that we had a few weeks ago. I'm Julie Grantham. I'm the Director of Schools for Good to Great Schools Australia. I'm a former teacher, principal, and the Director General for Education in Queensland. We're very keen this afternoon to give you that insight into the scope of work that goes into putting one of these units together. We may take a little bit longer, up to 45 minutes today, and that includes our question and answer time. So before we start, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. So right throughout the webinar, you can ask a question and answer. And see there at the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A function. You can ask questions anytime. If we don't get to them at the end, we'll certainly respond within 48 hours to make sure you get the answer to your question. To see our presenters this afternoon, go to the top of the screen and click on View Select and then Gallery View. And finally, we would love to have your feedback on this webinar so that we can continue to meet your needs. And to do that, we've developed a short 4-question survey that will pop up on your screen at the end of the webinar. So I've introduced myself. It's a privilege to be able to host this webinar series. But as I have 3 very experienced educators as co-hosts this afternoon or presenters this afternoon, I'm going to ask Stephanie to introduce herself first.
Thanks, Julie. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Stephanie. I'm a teaching coach and curriculum developer at Good to Great Schools Australia. I've been working in education for about 10 years, with much of that time focused on direct instruction and literacy intervention, particularly supporting students with reading and spelling difficulties. And in my current role, I support schools to implement evidence-based curriculum and deliver direct instruction programs with fidelity. And I also help develop the curriculum materials to support student learning as well.
Great. Thanks, Steph. So over to you, Monica.
Good afternoon. I'm Monica. I have over 15 years experience in the field of education, first as a teacher and then a teacher trainer and also a deputy principal.
Great. And lastly, our third presenter this afternoon is Stacey.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Stacey, and I am a curriculum developer on the English team here at GGSA. I bring over 20 years of experience in education, having served as a principal, assistant principal, and classroom teacher. Throughout my career, I've been especially passionate about supporting teachers through professional development, particularly in the area of English instruction.
So as I said, a very experienced team of educators. So great to have you all this afternoon. We're also going to do something a little bit different today because we're always trying to improve what we present and to determine that we're meeting your needs. We'd love to do a little poll to find out what it is that you're looking for this afternoon. And there's 6 questions that you can quickly click on. The hosts and the panelists, we can't vote, but you can out there, just so that we get some guidance on what your purpose is in attending today. So a quick click on which one of those statements actually describes your needs. So on to you, Steph. And this is about, we're moving on to describe what this webinar is about. If we can move to the next slide, Ali.
Awesome. Well, I'm really excited to be presenting this webinar. It's a preview of our new upcoming cross-curricular English writing program coming later in the year. It's a really exciting unit. It's designed to meaningfully integrate history into writing lessons. And you'll get a preview of the lessons from Foundation, Year 3 and Year 6, which we'll take a look at a little bit later on. All of the content is aligned with the Australian curriculum. You'll see how historical themes can boost fluency and confidence, especially for reluctant writers. And we'll point you to free professional resources that we have through your Good to Great Schools Australia membership, which will also be made available to you at the end of the webinar.
already across Australia, we have approximately 50% of primary schools using curriculum materials that we provide. So one of those things that we're getting that spread is because that these units actually give great benefits to schools, to teachers, and to students. So, Steph, can you take us through some of those benefits for teachers and schools?
Absolutely. So yeah, our informative writing program provides many benefits for both teachers and students. Looking first for teachers and schools, everything is ready to go for you. So there's no planning time needed because all of the resources, the lessons, everything's provided. There's no formal English teacher training required. So any teacher can confidently pick up and teach the lesson. It supports whole school improvement with a consistent approach across all year levels, and each year level builds upon the last. And it also streamlines the curriculum. So it links writing and subject content together in a really natural way. The benefits for students are it helps students develop purposeful writing, fluent writing skills. So it's not just writing for writing's sake. They learn to create well-structured, informative text using discipline-specific vocabulary. It also encourages critical thinking as students analyze historical events in their context. And importantly, they gain a deeper understanding of history through engaging and authentic tasks. And we're going to have a look at some really exciting different animations, images, and different types of activities that are offered in our lessons.
Okay, so I'm going to ask Stacey to come in now and take us through the structure of how the units are put together.
Thanks, Julie. Yes, our Unit 3 is structured with 45 classroom-ready lessons that are fully aligned with Australian curriculum requirements. There are also interactive features to keep students engaged, like magazine-style flipbooks and built-in assessments throughout. You also find ongoing formative assessments like exit tickets on Mondays through Wednesdays, and these are revisited in later tests to track growth over time. The unit ends with both a history content assessment and a publish and share writing assessment, giving students the chance to demonstrate both their knowledge and their writing skills. To create this program, we started with concept mapping, and this is how the developers go about planning. And so to do this, we align key history concepts and elements with the writing concepts and skills that the students need at each year level. For example, you see in our foundation year that students explore historical concepts about the Eoraptor, which are connected to history elements. Each element is then broken down into clear age-appropriate factual content, and then we carefully align this with the writing concepts and skills, all of which are related to informative writing. And so now we'll take a look at the program in more detail.
The weekly structure in the unit is the same for all year levels. On Monday, we start with a deep dive into the historical content for the week. On Tuesday, students read an exemplar text and explore the structure of informative text. On Wednesday, the teacher gives direct instruction on the writing content and skills for the week. Then on Thursday, students and the teachers work together to apply the content that they learned on Wednesday. Finally, on Friday, students are independently demonstrating their knowledge of the content through writing. All year levels are given a mind map each week, and we'll look at that a little later on. This is an example of how we organize our programs in our planning phase. The unit contains 9 weeks, and each week has a different historical topic and writing focus. The writing focus builds from week to week so that by week 7 or 8, students are writing informative texts, and they will edit and publish them in week 8 and 9. This is another example showing our weekly structure, moving from direct instruction on Monday to independent writing on Friday.
In this writing unit, we support students with a visual tool called a mind map. And each map begins with a big idea in the center, like you see, and it branches out with related topics and supporting details. You will see throughout foundation to year 6 that this tool helps students organize ideas using words, pictures, and color, making thinking visible. As students move through foundation to year 6, they are taught a writing structure that gradually builds in complexity and supports clear organization. In years 4 to 6, students follow a full informative text structure, including the title, introduction, 3 subtopics with body paragraphs, and a conclusion. In year 3, the structure is similar, but scaled slightly. So students write 2 subtopics and corresponding paragraphs, along with an introduction and a conclusion. By year 2, students are developing body paragraphs, but without the formal introduction and conclusion yet. And so this helps focus on that factual development within subtopics. In year 1, the structure shifts slightly, and students focus on just a single paragraph with 4 factual sentences and often include a labeled diagram or glossary to support meaning. And then finally, in foundation, students begin with simple structures like writing a title, a few factual sentences, and diagrams or glossary entries. But no matter the year level, students are provided with a consistent and age-appropriate structure to help organize their writing and support reader understanding.
So I'm going to ask each of the presenters to walk us through a particular unit. So let's start off with the foundation to year 2, what students learn, Monica.
In this unit, each year level explores a different historical theme. So in foundation, the theme is Bones of Giants, and students learn about dinosaurs. They learn to identify the parts of an informative text, such as a title, diagram, and glossary, and later they write titles and captions to go along with pictures. In year 1, the theme is Frozen in Time. Students learn about the Ice Age and its impact. They will then learn more in depth about the features of informative writing and practice writing facts in paragraphs. In year 2, the theme is Spark of Genius. Each week, students learn about a different invention that has had a big impact on history. Inventions like the wheel, writing, and the steam engine. And students learn how to read diagrams and come up with subtopics for their writing. We've referred to the foundation overview before, so we'll just go ahead and go to the next slide. Next, you'll see lesson 1 of foundation year level. You'll notice that the slides have very few words on them as students are still learning to read. If there are words, they are large, age-appropriate font, and the slides are very animated in order to keep the attention of these young learners. At the start of each Monday lesson, students will see a mind map of the historical content for the week. This is the mind map found in lesson 1 of foundation about the Eoraptor. Students are told the daily learning objective at the start of the lesson. This sets a purpose for the lesson and helps them know what they will achieve. The beginning of the lesson is teacher directed, the I do portion. The teacher is giving students information and modeling concepts. The next few slides help students understand and visualize that the Eoraptor lived a long, long time ago. So we start in the present day. Then we go back in time to long ago when there were dinosaurs living on the earth. The first period is the Cretaceous period, and the teacher briefly explains what the earth looked like at this time, but the Eoraptor didn't live at this time. They have to keep going back. The next period is the Jurassic period. The teacher will explain what the earth briefly looks like and give examples of dinosaurs found during this period, but we're still moving back further to find the Eoraptor. Finally, we're at the Triassic period where the Eoraptor lived. Having these several different slides and steps back in time really helps drive the point that the Eoraptor lived a long, long time ago. This is another visual to show students the different time periods and provide a side-by-side comparison. Next, we have an animated timeline that reinforces when the Eoraptor lived. There are beautiful images and animation. On each part of the timeline, the background looks different because the Earth is changing. The 9 dinosaurs that are covered in the unit are placed in their proper order. Here we have a map showing the Eoraptor lived in South America. Australia is covered in purple to show students where they live on the map. And then this slide talks about the Eoraptor living near grassy areas and water. To talk about the Eoraptor's size, we compare its size to something that students all know, the chicken. We often use moving animations on the slides to make topics come to life and keep the students' attention. Here we can see all the things that the Eoraptor eats. After the historical content is covered in Monday and Tuesday's lessons, the writing content is woven in. Here, students are being introduced to the word informative. The teacher gives some examples of information that students might tell others. The teacher is explaining in the I do portion that informative texts are books that help us learn real facts. We can often tell what we will learn just by reading the title and looking at the picture on the cover. Next is the we do portion. This comes after the teacher directed I do part. Students are shown the title of the book, and then they discuss with a partner what they think the purpose of the text is. We do's allow students to begin applying what they have learned, but with some support. On Tuesday, foundation students will read this informative text about the Eoraptor. The texts are designed to look similar to National Geographic magazines. Each page has just a few simple sentences to reinforce information that they have already learned about the topic. New words are written in bold and defined later in the glossary. The next page shows a diagram of the Eoraptor. Students learn that diagrams are a feature of many informative texts. Again, you can see that the sentences are kept short and simple for the foundation year level. And this is another page of the exemplar text. Finally, at the end, the glossary is included at the end of each exemplar text. This page defines all the new vocabulary that students were introduced to.
That's great, Monica. And I think everyone can agree that those illustrations and the way that's constructed and put together is just so responsive to the needs of the foundation year level. Can I remind, before we move on, that question and answer capacity is there. So far, we've got one question, and we'll answer those questions at the end of the session. So now we're going to move on to Steph to take us through another lesson, and this is about the year 3 to 6s. So over to you, Steph.
Thanks, Julie. Yeah, our 3 to 6 lessons integrate rich historical content with informative writing instruction. So year 3, learn about famous explorers and write about their journeys. Year 4, explore Australia's early history from different perspectives and use sources to write clearly. Year 5, study the 19th century Australia and craft precise, purposeful texts. And year 6, examine key 20th century events and write evidence-based pieces. So students use sources to build historical knowledge and write purposeful, structured texts as well. We're going to look at year 3 now. So in year 3, students explore key figures and events in world exploration. They understand how these journeys shape geography, science, and technology, and build their informative writing skills through structured activities. And lessons include creating timelines of major expeditions and mapping explorers' routes to bringing history to life in a hands-on way. So now let's take a look at some of our special features from year 3 lessons. Here is the mind map, which starts at the center with the main topic, which we've looked at, and you can see how this mirrors and builds upon foundation. The topic in the center is the discovery of the Pacific, and it branches out into key questions. So who, where, why, and how. And this tool supports comprehension by combining visuals with text. So you'll notice features like the compass, ocean, current, and stars, which aren't just decorative. They reinforce important ideas from the lesson and help students make deeper connections to the content. And here's a quick sneak peek of our Imagine If interactive moments. In this lesson, students step into the shoes of an explorer, imagining that they're on a boat in the Pacific Ocean. So with music, visuals, and guided reflection, it brings history to life and gets students excited about the journey they're about to take. So that was just a short glimpse, but activities like this really help students emotionally connect with the content, making it easier for them to visualize, discuss, and write about what they're learning. So history concepts are brought to life through all of these animations and visuals. And this slide, for example, explores the where of the Pacific Ocean, using engaging maps and real-world imagery to help students make geographic connections and truly understand the scale and the context of exploration. Lessons help students understand who the early Pacific explorers were and when they began settling the islands. The map and the visual cues highlight key points, showing the journey from Asia to the Pacific. So migration is brought to life by showing the movement of people across the Pacific using red and blue arrows. It gives students a clear visual of the migration path, helping them to understand how early settlers made their way across oceans and connected distant islands. There are really beautiful images of how the islands of the Pacific were settled. So students learn about long distance travel and two-way voyages through visuals that really help them connect to the journey and the historical narrative. Students also get to see and interact with the content. So here they learn how explorers navigated oceans by reading the stars and following ocean currents. So it makes these seemingly complex ideas really simple and memorable to students as well. The exemplar text for Year 3 looks similar for Foundation to Year 2. So it's designed to look like a National Geographic magazine. And this text is about the discovery of the Pacific. High quality images like this one are used throughout the exemplar text. In Year 3, texts have much more writing in them, so because students are at a higher level. So this text is structured using the headings to show subtopics, and the informative text students write at the end of the unit will have this same structure. And just like we saw in Foundation exemplar text, new vocabulary words are bolded, and this is a common feature in informative texts. And then next, it ends with a glossary that defines all of the new vocabulary students were introduced to in the text, which aligns with Foundation through to Year 6 as well. So each year level is taught an informative writing structure, and you can see the structure for Year 3 as Stacey went through earlier. The features are reviewed by the teacher in the I do part of the lesson. And then the exemplar text is just that was just read is broken down to clearly show the different parts of the text structure. Students are given direct instruction as to what an informative text is and its purpose. So students use printed cards to match the informative text with each feature's definition and a picture of the feature in the exemplar text. So before students start any activity, the teacher demonstrates how it's done in the I do. So here the teacher models pairing cards for a topic, fact, and detail. And then students complete the we do activity in small groups using cards at their table. So the teacher provides 2 more examples so that it is very clear to students when they should, what they should do in their groups. And then after students complete the activity, the teacher shows the answers so the students can check their own work. Students learn that informative writing contains facts, not opinions. So facts can be proven. The teacher goes through 2 example sentences and explains which one is a fact and which is an opinion. And then in the we do, this gives students the opportunity to decide if a sentence is a fact or an opinion. In the we do, students will hold up 1 finger if they think the sentence is a fact, and 2 fingers if they think the sentence is an opinion. So the teacher can look around and instantly see all of the student responses in the classroom. And here the teacher models how to use the title and pictures on the cover to learn what the book will be about. So in the We Do, students are shown several different covers, and in pairs, they have to discuss what they think the topic of the book is. Here, the teacher is demonstrating how to use keywords to create strong titles. And then in the We Do, students are given the words to come up with a title that relates to this picture. And then at the end of the lesson, students will either complete an exit ticket, like we've mentioned, to show their understanding of the lesson, or they reflect using their mind map. So here students would be asked something like, put a star next to something you could go home and teach someone about.
Great, Steph. And I think you can see the structure of how the lessons unpack. They're consistent with how we deliver our effective teaching right across our units of work in all the learning areas of the Australian curriculum. Again, before we move on to our upper school, our year 6, can I remind you to put questions into the Q&A. So Stacey, you're going to take us through our last category of lessons, which is the year 6.
Yes, thanks, Julie. The third year we will highlight is year 6, and this is the lucky country, which guides students through Australia's transformation during the 20th century. So students will analyze events like federation and the evolution of citizenship, and then build on their research skills by analyzing historical texts and media. Some of the special features in year 6 include the use of different media formats to present exemplar texts, interactive slides with rich visuals to keep students engaged, and then hands-on student-centered activities that give them meaningful opportunities to practice and apply what they've learned. The first lesson focuses on federation, and just like in previous years, students begin with a pre-built mind map. This tool helps them organize and understand the historical content while also giving that space to personalize it by adding visuals and color or additional notes throughout the lesson. This slide does a really great job of visually showing how the Australian colonies were once separated. The animation really brings that concept to life, and students don't just hear about it, they get to see the division and better understand how federation brought the colonies together. Again, this slide does the same thing by using animation to show the separation of the colonies, but now adds in the vocabulary element, giving students an opportunity to become familiar with the term unite. For more challenging concepts like the difference between state and federal parliaments, images and maps are really helpful. And so this unit really does a great job of including these visuals throughout the lessons in all years to support student understanding. Using original documents like an image of the Constitution or a photo of Queen Victoria really helps students make stronger connections to these important concepts. And so this slide is a great example of how authentic sources bring history to life. Here again is this year 6 text structure that guides students in writing well-organized, informative texts. And it is the most developed structure in the unit. And you can see there that it has all of the components, the title, introduction, 3 subtopics with the body paragraphs and the conclusion. A key highlight of this unit is the use of images that really connect to the informative texts that are being taught. And because we're focusing on informative writing, it's really important for the students to see real life examples like newspapers and textbooks and other everyday informational materials. And that helps them understand the purpose and style of this kind of writing. Here's a really great example from this year's lessons. We want students to connect with the tools that they know and use. And so in year 6, digital tools like Google are very familiar to students. So our exemplar represents text as if a student is conducting a Google search about the story of Federation. As the exemplar scrolls like a real web page, notice how it mirrors our informative text structure, complete with the title, subtopics, and multiple paragraphs. This page is focused on the birth of Australia as one nation, and it also includes an engaging image to help students connect with the content visually. The exemplar continues with the first subtopic of colonial Australia, continues with colonies unite, and then in the third subtopic, the Australian Constitution, before finally getting to the conclusion of the story of Federation with a well-known painting showing the ceremony where Australia became one nation in 1901. Year 6 really builds on the foundations taught in earlier years, showing the clear scaffolding across the unit in writing. So for example, while students have been learning how to write titles throughout the years, in year 6, the focus really deepens and students begin to evaluate the strength of their titles using this 5-star rubric to assess and reflect on how effective their titles are at capturing attention and clearly introducing a topic. The lesson continues in that same webpage format, which keeps students engaged. And in this section, the teacher models the I do by rating the strength of each example title using that 5-star rubric before students move into the we do phase and practice those skills together. Here is that we do phase. So after the I do, where the teacher demonstrates how to assess titles, the students now assess these titles and rate the strength of them, practicing together before eventually applying it independently in the you do. Here is another example of an engaging activity that students do together during this lesson, and that's a card sort. All of these resources and cards are provided for you, and it gives students a fun, hands-on way to practice the concept or skill collaboratively while strengthening their own understanding. This next slide builds on the concept of strong titles by introducing the colon. The bridge, that visual right there, is a really great metaphor, and it shows students how a colon connects two ideas into one powerful title. You'll also notice the handwritten annotations and the highlights, which model the thinking process for students in a really accessible and visual way. Here we continue using the interactive highlighting tool and annotations to model thinking for students. You'll see how images are added to support the development of strong titles, making the topic clearer and more engaging. This next slide also uses animations to show students another way of creating titles, offering variety while reinforcing that concept. This slide is a great interactive slide, and that's happening throughout the entire unit. It's a cork board with movable Post-it notes, and students use this to build strong titles. And it's just another creative way to keep things fresh and capture students' attention while reinforcing these key writing skills. We continue the lesson with more teacher modeling, using those annotations and highlighting to really drive home the concept. And these visual cues are just really helpful so that students can clearly see what makes a strong title and how to improve on their own writing. In year 6, the students go beyond simply just stating facts. They need to now explain those facts using evidence. And so this lesson focuses on building that skill and helping students distinguish between fact and opinion, and then support their ideas with relevant evidence. This lesson breaks down important complex writing concepts like how to avoid jargon in their writing. And so it breaks it into very manageable parts, uses clear explanations, and the helpful animations model each step. Here's another excellent year 6 mind map, and this one's focused on the quarry and the sheep's back, again, showing those subtopics and key ideas that are branching off of that main topic. Strong images are really a standout feature just throughout the entire unit. They create a clear connection to the direct instruction of historical content, like here with the gold rush, helping students visualize and better understand those key events. Additionally, this unit strikes a nice balance between really vibrant, colorful images, but also the authentic black and white photos. This slide uses the highlight tool as well to draw that attention to the key vocabulary like export, which is really important for understanding during this time period. Videos are also embedded throughout some of our lessons, and these engaging clips really offer students a fresh perspective and a dynamic way to connect with the content, and helps to deepen their understanding and keep their interest level really high. These next few slides really just highlight the use of images and animations that are woven throughout the lessons. They keep learning fun and interactive for students. This one is focusing on the gold rush boom with some really great visuals, followed by the flip side of that, which is the bust. And this slide uses contrasting visuals to help students understand the ups and downs of history, making complex events even clearer. This slide's animation works perfectly as the text explains how the money from gold and wool helped build Australia. The smaller images of steam engines and roads and harbors appear step by step, and it really helps the students connect with the historical impact visually. Another topic in year 6 is the Great Depression. And as always, we start with the mind map to help them organize key ideas before diving into the content. The historical elements of the Great Depression can be challenging for students, which is why the animations and the powerful images in this lesson are so important. They really help students visualize and emotionally connect with what life was like during this period. This slide offers a really great balance of historical and modern day images of the Sydney Harbor Bridge, helping students see how this iconic landmark has evolved over time. For this lesson, the exemplar text is designed to reflect the Great Depression era by presenting information in a newspaper format. This helps the students connect with the historical context more authentically rather than using the digital Google search format from the previous lesson. It still includes relevant images, clear subtopics like global impact, and maintains that informative text structure that students have learned. As it flips over to the second subtopic, we see Australian impact, followed by government support, and then the conclusion of the exemplar text with an image that connects to the text.
Can I just say to all the developers, you've done a fantastic job. You've really put yourselves in the shoes of a teacher to make sure that all those activities and those visuals will connect with kids, with the students in our class. So that's a great job. So far, we've still got 2 questions. If there's any burning questions you still have, please pop them in there so we can come back to them at the end of the presentation. We're going to move on now to, and I think some of the questions will be answered when Steph does this presentation, about what resources are available to you through our Good to Great Schools Australia website. So over to you, Steph, on the curriculum resources.
Thanks, Julie. Yeah, so all of our resources are provided on our website. So once you sign up as a member, you can access these, and Julie will go into that a little bit later. But resources reduce lesson preparation time, and they help you to teach a subject effectively and with confidence. So we provide things like the teaching guide for every year at every year level and every lesson. And this is a script of what the teacher says to align with the lesson PowerPoints that we've shown you. So student workbooks are also provided for each year level. And this includes the independent practice activities, the you do, and it's just organized student work, and it consolidates their learning. And then we also offer professional learning modules, which I'm going to take you through now. Our mastery teaching pathway is our professional development platform for educators and school teams. And this is available to all of our members. So it offers certified training and coaching aligned with the Australian National Teaching Standards and school improvement goals. And it's designed for everyone in education, all the way from principals to teaching assistants. So it equips them with essential skills needed for success. And we have our English writing module, which provides guidance on things like managing writing activities, including developing sentence level grammar, constructing paragraphs, and completing full text writing tasks. It covers strategies for teaching vocabulary, grammar, and text analysis, as well as bringing key learning ideas like history into English lessons. So completing this module will give you the confidence to implement English in the classroom, and I strongly recommend completing the program module Teach English Writing Foundation to 6 before you start delivering this program. And here's an overview of our professional learning modules, and they're grouped by purpose to support different professional learning needs. So our course modules focus on building effective teaching knowledge and confidence across all subjects. And then we have our specific program modules, which is where the Teach English Writing F to 6 fits under. So this offers deep training aligned to specific programs with an overview of the program, teaching practices, instructional strategies and supportive resources. It goes through the unit and lesson components, different scenarios, and also assessment and success criteria as well. And then we have our practice modules, which these are short targeted lessons to address specific teaching challenges. For example, signaling or checking for mastery. If you're finding you've started and you need more support in these areas, then we use our practice modules. And we also have collegial modules. So these are designed for whole school teams to implement, to learn together. So these are perfect for student-free days with a focus on evidence-based practices.
Great. So I think you summed it up very nicely when you said the whole unit, all the resources and all the professional learning are there for each teacher, for each school to access so that they get that consistency and school-wide development of these types of units that we've presented to you today. We're going to move on to the question and answers. And Joyota, you're just wondering, are the books online? So I think Steph just answered that. Everything you've seen would be online with this unit when it is published. And you are able to access all those materials if you're a member of Good to Great Schools Australia. And I'll go through that very shortly. There are only 2 questions there, but there's still time to put them in. Always try and prepare for question and answer time, just in case we've answered all your questions throughout the presentation. But when we're developing units, we often get asked, questions that we can capture to give you an answer to. And for example, Monica, one of the questions that we kept getting asked when we were doing this unit is, can my current English or history planning be replaced with this unit?
Yes, the program is designed to reduce teacher workload with structured, ready-to-go lessons. So this unit is fully aligned with Australian curriculum for both English and history. It teaches informative writing through structured scaffold lessons while integrating those historical concepts and source analysis. So all of them are matched to year-level content descriptors.
And the other one that always comes up is, can they swap lessons and weeks about?
The sequence is intentionally designed to build from one week to the next, each lesson introducing or revisiting key concepts in a logical order. So swapping out entire weeks or lessons would be a challenge. As later weeks, we often assume that students have learned these certain skills from previous weeks.
Yeah. And Steph, one of the things that also throughout the presentation, I think we've demonstrated how that this work really assists teachers with their planning and their preparation. So how much preparation would you expect to see from a teacher?
Yeah, we do get asked this quite often. And the good news is that the planning side is already done. So like we've said, each lesson comes with a complete teaching guide, the PowerPoint presentation, student workbooks, even the assessment tasks are already done for you. However, preparation is still essential for effective delivery. And that's where our modules, practice modules and program modules come into play here. So we've provided, as we've looked at, an extensive library of supporting resources. And as I said, I would strongly recommend completing the program modules, Teach English Writing F to 6 before you start, because of the fact that to teach with fidelity, you want to be across the purpose, the scope and sequence. You want to be confident in what you're teaching. So all of this is provided for you to give you a starting point. So you're not just picking up and trying to read a script with low confidence. We give everything to set teachers up for success. Even the practice modules, if you start teaching and you're finding, oh, I'm not sure how to check for mastery, or I'm not good at sticking to the script, all of these practice modules are also there for you. So in order to prepare, I would go through and tailor this training to your own needs.
Yeah, or to the school-wide needs too,
Yeah,
Stephanie.
exactly right.
Stacey, one last question in the we're just running a bit short of time. Do students need that prior knowledge of the historical content to be able to do these units successfully?
No, Julie, that is what is really great about this unit too, is that no prior knowledge is required. The lessons are written assuming a blank slate and build knowledge sequentially, starting with engaging, accessible content. So no prior knowledge is needed at all.
Great. Okay, so everyone, let's move on to how we can support you. We have two types of membership. You can be an individual member, and you can scan that QR code that's right there on the screen, and that will take you to the sign up page. Or if you get the real benefit of across a whole school-wide implementation, then your school can have a partner school membership, which gives a greater access to a wider range of resources. So in our partner school membership, you get premium programs that aren't necessarily available to the individual teacher. And a partnership school, they actually have 5 or more members. And so a lot of schools where the use is right across a number of classrooms, they become a partner school automatically. But if your administration or a school leader is interested in becoming a partner school, see there at the bottom of the screen, the info at Good to Great Schools Australia, the info at goodtogreatschools.org.au. Simply email us and we'll get that information back to you. But by signing up on our website, you get to explore our website, explore all the benefits it brings. And the best news of all is that there's absolutely no cost to any user of any of our materials. It is all free. And that's because that's part of our mission and our vision, is to provide these quality curriculum to teachers in schools right across Australia. So please join and get full access to all our materials. So thank you everyone for joining us today. We've been doing a webinar each week to demonstrate and to showcase the great work that's being done by our developers. And next week, we're doing another webinar on building a supportive school climate through positive high expectations. Again, sign up with that QR code. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Stephanie, Monica and Stacey, for all your hard work. And I just love seeing what you do and the cleverness that's behind everything that we present. And I think it's obvious you put yourself in a teacher's shoes that's sitting in a classroom with lots of children in front of them. So very well done there. Don't forget, at the end of when I sign off, a little survey will pop up. And it'd be great if there's only 4 questions. It'd be great if you could just take a minute to answer those questions. So we, as I said at the start, we want to continue to improve and we want to meet the needs that you have at your particular location or you personally. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us. And until next week and until next time that you join us, thanks again for attending. Bye for now.